a work in progress. It's something stirring under that surface. Like one step, two step, until that new step gets me on purpose. It'll all be worth it, 'cause I'm in process, a work in progress. It's something stirring under that surface. Like one step, two step, until that new step gets me on purpose. It'll all be worth it, 'cause I'm in. What's up, y'all? What's up? Welcome back to the Creative in Process podcast, which is a thoughtfully creative podcast for thoughtful creatives who love podcasts. I am back again. I am Nialand. If you are new here, welcome. This is only episode 7, so you're not that far behind. If you've been around for a little bit, then you probably like, what has been happening? Because I have been checking back for new episodes and I haven't seen any. I've listened to all the previous 6 episodes and what's been going on. So I feel you on that. I overstand, and it's definitely going to tie into our conversation for today. But I've had to take like a little hiatus a little bit. And I understood going into creating this podcast that I was going to have to find my way. I didn't want to do all of this heavy planning and then start the podcast. Like I really wanted to have a natural organic flow and grow with it and see what works and do all of those kinds of things. So what that ended up looking like is me doing what I could with the time and the energy and the ability that I had. And then when I didn't have it, couldn't do it. So lifing and balancing a few things and things just coming up kind of made it difficult for me to do the weekly thing. I'm still debating on whether or not this is going to be a weekly thing or if I'm going to spread it out a little bit further, but that all depends on you and how you respond to it. So please continue to send your feedback. Please continue to comment. Go to creativeinprocess.com and you can leave your voice note feedback so that you can get it featured on a future episode and just share your thoughts, ask questions, all of that kind of stuff. So thank you for being here, however you got here, and for whatever reason that you're here. I am Nialand, once again, singer, songwriter, independent music artist, and now podcast host. I do have some episodes already on deck. I just haven't released them yet because I'm just trying to get things situated and all that. But I have some really cool stuff on the way. Probably, maybe next episode we might switch it up a little bit. I'm not sure. But again, as the title of this podcast is The Creative in Process, there are things that are in process. So you are experiencing in real time these different elements of, me doing what I'm doing. So we are going to jump right into today's episode. And once again, thank you so much for being here. If you're new, please go back and listen to the previous episodes because it's going to all tie in to kind of give you a feel for where we're going. And, as the ebbs and flows come and things switch up and change, I want you to kind of feel like you've been a part of the journey from the beginning. So I appreciate you at whatever point you jumped on board. We're going to get into today's episode. And as I have done from time to time on the podcast, is introduce the episode by way of sharing a quote from an artist that I either admire or just someone that is in the artistically creative space in general and thoughts that they've had about certain things. So before I give you the title of what we're going to get into, I want to give you this quote. So this quote is from the legendary, the iconic, the amazing Miss Dolly Parton, musician, songwriter, singer, actress, all of the things. If you don't know, you should really know, but I'm pretty sure you know. But she's an amazing country singer in that genre. Her quote is, "We cannot direct the wind, but we can adjust the sails." So, yes, that is a boating metaphor. I don't boat. I don't know anything about the mechanics or the logistics of operating a boat, but, I get the concept overall. So I'm sure you do too. So we cannot direct the wind, but we can adjust the sails. So being on a boat, if you've ever been on one, or even if you've just seen one on TV or whatever, you're on the boat and you are not in control of what the wind does. But when the wind does certain things, you can adjust by way of moving the sail and getting the boat to adjust to what's happening in the environment around it. So I wanted to touch on that a little bit for a few reasons. Number one, just because it's just a necessary thing in life to learn how to adjust and to pivot. But not only making these adjustments and pivots, but doing them even when things are unplanned, because obviously so many times we want to move and do things because we have a vision in our mind for what we want it to do, what we want, where we want to go, how we want things to be, and all of that. But what happens when something is going on and it's in an instant that you have to adapt and you have to adjust? What do you do? Do you still stick to your original plan, or do you move with the environment around you? Do you move with the wind? Do you adjust the sail for the wind that's coming that you can't control? And for me, I have absolutely been in places of like extreme stubbornness where it's like, yo, this is what I want to do. This is how I want it done. I don't care what's happening. This is what I'm going to do. And to some degree, it's good to have a standard. It's good to have something to stand on business, as the kids say nowadays. But like, there is also something so powerful in the ability to move with what's moving around you. Not that you have to succumb to it, but you can adjust. And I think it causes a lot less hardship and a lot less frustration when you don't just get annoyed by the fact that things aren't going as planned, but instead you figure out like, okay, something has shifted. How can I fall in line and still get to the goal, still achieve purpose if this is happening around me? There are going to be things that you can't control. There are going to be people that do things and it's going to be unexpected, and you're not going to know where it came from. It's just going to be, sometimes it can be very sporadic or very random seemingly, but it's really important to take those moments and reconsider some things. Like, okay, this is wild. This just happened out of nowhere. I wasn't expecting this. And that could throw you all the way off. Or you could say like, okay, cool. So since this happened, instead of that, let me do this, or let me move this way, or let me make this move instead. So all of that and we've talked about this before, just like to have the right perspective and to give yourself the peace of mind, because child, being stressed out over stuff you can't control is insane. It's crazy. Like, it's ridiculous because you cannot do anything about what you can't do anything about. So I always, nowadays, in this new place that I'm in, I am very conscious of making sure that I am not overexerting my energy trying to feel better or to feel a way about something that I can't touch, I can't fix, I can't make it better. It is what it is, so I need to be what I am and make it work for me in the situation and in the matter. So adjusting can be difficult. There have been so many times that I have had to adjust and pivot in unplanned, unexpected ways. And honestly, that is something that now it's a skill set. It's happened so many times. I remember being, even in my music space, so many times, like when I tell you so many times, when I say I have reached out to people, I have put money in people's hands to get help with certain things and to have things done. And I'm talking about being ignored, blocked, disregarded, or, getting less than what I had set out to get, or whatever you want to call it, or just like literally just being abandoned in a moment and having to find a solution when I couldn't rely on the source that I thought was available to me. So one example of that, this was years ago, even though I have tons more current, but this is one. example, when I did my first album, Next in Line, the project, this was back before your iTunes, Apple Music, Spotify days where you could just upload and have your music, spread out globally. I'm talking about we pressing up CDs one by one. We're burning them by ourselves because, unsigned, not on a label, don't have the funding to package product at all. To put my music in a CD case and, have it mass produced across the world. That was not happening in my heyday when I started. So one of the things that I did was I met someone who was a graphic designer. And so I'm like, okay, cool. Can I pay you to design my album cover? Because I need, an album cover. I have the songs covered and, have that part done. But obviously it needs to have a look. Album cover had, visions for it. I did a photo shoot. And so, trying to get the whole thing together. So I did this, gave this guy my money. At the time, I gave him $250. I will never forget this. This is why I know exactly how much I gave him. So I gave him $250 and was waiting on him to create the design and, gave him all the information, waiting on him to do everything to create this design because I needed to send the album artwork, the album book. Back in the day, y'all young kids, y'all may not know nothing about getting a CD, pulling the little booklet out and reading a multi-folded paper that has all the things, or even cassette tapes if you want to go there. But so I had to get that by a certain time so that it could get printed, so that I could hand it over and finish in my packaging process so the project can be released when it's supposed to be released. Because again, it's not getting released on iTunes on X date. It has to be sent to the printer so that I can have it in hand and start going door to door and person to person to hand out this project and having an album release party, all of that kind of stuff. But anyway, gave this man my money, and time was passing and I just wasn't hearing from him. He wasn't producing anything. And at the time, this is a short sidebar, maybe it'll come up on another episode, but we're not gonna get into today. But at the time, I was also a licensed hairstylist. I was working in a barbershop. So I met this guy because he was coming to the shop getting his hair cut. He wasn't my client, but he was just in the shop and, through conversation, because barbershop talk is a thing, found out that he was a graphic designer. And so I'm trying to get in contact with him. He's not answering the phone. No social media at this time, guys. So I couldn't look him up on Facebook or anything. All I can do is call. Couldn't even text him. This is a different time. It was different. Okay. So couldn't get a hold of him. But at one point, somehow, I don't really remember, but got in touch with him some kind of way. And I'm like, hey, I need the graphic design or whatever. So he's like, yeah, come look at it or whatever. So I came to his place and was looking at it, and it wasn't done. It wasn't done. It was very much just a picture, which I did in my photo shoot. So this is retouching and all that kind of stuff. None of that stuff was happening. And so I'm sitting there and I tell him this needed to be done by a certain day because I have to do this, this, and this. And so he's complaining and all that kind of stuff. So he's like, fine, I'll just do it right now. And he's sitting in front of me doing the graphics and, trying to make the thing, but it wasn't looking good at all. It was looking real crazy. And so I'm just like, man, this is really wild. And I told him, I'm going to have to probably find someone else to do this because it doesn't seem like you're going to be done in time and blah, blah, blah. And so can you give my money back or give me some of my money back? And he said that he would send it to me or get it to me some kind of way by a certain date. Long story short, it didn't happen. But something did happen in that moment. In that moment, while he was sitting there working on the graphics in front of me, I was just watching him do it. And so I was paying attention to the program, the software he was using on the computer. And shout out to my dad because, maybe this will come up later too. But the reason why I'm so resourceful is because of my dad. Anytime I had something going on or tried to figure something out, he's giving me software or equipment. So lots of the skills that I have today were derived from my father giving me the things, because he had resources of his own working in his industry. So in computer technology, that kind of thing. So I reached out to my father and I'm like, you have this program called Photoshop that whatever. And so he gave me the Photoshop software. I downloaded it on my computer, and then I sat for hours because I want to say the album art was due like within like 2 days or something like that. But I sat for hours using the memory that I had of sitting in that man's place and watching him do the graphics. Sat for hours and figured out the programming until I was able to come up with the graphics for the design for the album art. So I ended up doing my own album art for my first project, my first album, and made the design, made everything into it and all that kind of stuff. So maybe a long story short, that led me to continuing to create graphic designs and things like that for other things that I was working on, other flyers and all of that kind of stuff. And eventually, full blown, just doing all of my graphic everything, honestly, even to this day, doing all of my graphic design, web design, that kind of thing. So that was a moment where it was unplanned, unexpected. I'm thinking if I'm paying someone, a professional, for a service, that they were going to do said service. And when they didn't, I could have just said, or I could have just been like, so this is another caveat. In addition to him not having my stuff done, he was trying to get me to pay him more money to kind of like expedite it, even though he had missed the deadlines, all this stuff. So he's like, well, I got stuff going on, you could pay me extra, whatever, and I'll finish it, type of thing. And so in that moment, I could have been like, okay, well, dang, here's the other $50 or whatever it was he was trying to charge me, and just let him try to finish it, and it be what it is. Or the pivot, the adjustment was, you know what? I feel like my dad was telling me about this software. Let me go see if I can download this software and try to figure this out on my own. And that's what I did. So I in that moment, I chose to adjust and pivot from my original plans, from what I had set out to do. And to this day, I look at it as me having spent $250 to learn graphic design, even though I had no teacher, even though he wasn't the one that taught me. He basically took my money, but in turn, I ended up learning this skill set that, carries me through to this day. So had I just been stuck on doing it the way I had planned on doing it, skill set wouldn't be there. Now, soft tangent, it's not my favorite thing to do, but I do it because I know how to do it. Obviously, it saves me a lot of money, and it's a skill that I have since very much grown and developed and have gotten very good at, and it's something that's useful to me or whatever. So not mad at it, and it's just an example of having to adjust and adapt to the things that happen around you. So that's one example. I would love to hear examples that you have, or that you're maybe even struggling with trying to adjust to where you are in life, because on top of that, like I spoke in the beginning, having not been able to do consistent episodes of the podcast, that also came from me being in a place, even in my personal life, trying to adjust things here and make pivots here, because so many unplanned, unexpected things were coming up, where my plan was focusing on getting these podcast episodes out to you, but life was happening around me. My environment was changing. So I had to make adjustments in those moments, and in making those adjustments, one of the things that had to shift was the consistency or the frequency of me doing the podcast. So with that happening, and then just life, there was some moments where I wasn't like physically feeling well, and I had some shows popping up unexpectedly. I had scheduling conflicts here and there, so things were happening. It just but the decision was, okay, let me adjust, let me see where I can put some things in different places. And I think it's important to also not be so fixated on your own plan and the way that you planned it to go that you miss the beauty in life's unexpected happenings, because sometimes we can just see things as inconveniences to the point that we don't even acknowledge the fact that maybe this happened for a reason. Maybe I have to look at this differently so that I can find a better way to do something that maybe I thought was a good idea but really wasn't. So it's that part of that pivot. So like you go in one direction and you just making a slight turn here, a slight turn there, just so that you can shift the way that you were moving for the good. So my conclusion here, and I hope this is helpful to you. I hope that sometimes I feel like I ramble, but I really am trying to like speak very in detail, almost like trying to make you feel what I feel. So hopefully it's touching you. I feel like it could be. It's not for everybody, I guess, but if you do resonate and understand, please share your thoughts. But saying all of that to say that you will never be able to control every single aspect of your day, of your life. There are things that are going to happen that will be out of your control, that also won't be your fault. So the other part of that is don't feel so defeated when things don't go as planned, because sometimes it just is meant to happen that way and it's nothing that you could have done to change it. So a lot of times we grieve where we are and what's going on because we saw it a certain way, so it feels like there is a loss or a deficit when it doesn't go a certain way, when in actuality that's just the way that it was supposed to happen in order for you to get into the proper placement and the proper position for whatever it is that you're going to do. So don't be discouraged when you are being called to pivot, when you're being called to adjust, because that might be the greatest thing that ever happened to you, was the ability to make adjustments. There have been so many moments in my life where just the simplest tweak of my day or a moment, going somewhere here, even like there's a, I'm sure you've heard it several times before of like, you're on your way to work or you're going somewhere important and you get caught by a train, or there's some kind of delay and then you find out later on that there was an accident or something like that. So those divine delays that stop you from doing the planned thing sometimes can be the greatest thing that ever happened to you. And I have so many stories about those types of things happening where by a split second I may have missed something terrible, or I may have just been on time for the right thing, bumped into the right person at the right time, and just because I turned left on this street accidentally and then I ended up bumping into some, all those kinds of things. So consider that as you go through your day, as you go through your week. Just think about the minor inconveniences and see them as opportunities to pivot and to adjust in ways that will cause you to be in a better situation than you are at the moment. Don't be completely married to your plan. Have a plan. And another thing I'm learning, child, listen, you could plan top to bottom, cross every T, dot every I. I guarantee you, no matter what you plan in life, every single thing, anything in life, nothing is going to go 100% as you planned. Even if it looks like you check the box for everything that was on your to-do list, the way things are going to happen is never going to be the way that you fully completely envisioned it, because that's just not how things go. Like, you have a plan, you plan for things, but there is so much more to life and to your purpose that the things that happen, there's only so much that you can prepare for, basically. So keep that in mind when you are stressing out about things not happening the way that you planned them, or getting frustrated when it's not looking the same as you thought it would, because it could very well be an opportunity for you to adjust and fall right into place with something that you could not have ever imagined doing, or being placed in. And it could be the greatest thing ever. So be encouraged in that space. And that's what I wanted to leave you with today. Adjust and adapt in those unplanned moments and pivot accordingly. So I would love to know your thoughts. I say this all the time. If you're new here, you'll realize that. And if you aren't, then you already know. Please, 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 y'all, go to creativeandprocess.com. Leave your feedback. It is so helpful to me to know how you feel about the podcast. I know a lot of people on YouTube often post their comments, which I truly love and appreciate, but also leave your voice notes, because that helps me tremendously, so that I can know and actually hear your voice and know that there are people out there out on the other side of this digital world. And I would love to hear from you and all of that good stuff. And thank you so much. I have some really cool stuff on the way for the podcast. Bear with me, because I'm trying to make sure it's effective in the right timing. So there's some stuff that I have in my back pocket that I'm like, maybe it's not time for this yet, but I'm getting there. But I need your feedback. I need your support, your shares, your likes, your comments. Tell somebody about the podcast, all of that wonderful stuff. Eventually maybe I'll kind of always give that call to action, because it is so important. But I really want to make sure that I am doing a service by sharing this podcast and, by allowing it to be in the world. So let me know your thoughts and all of that stuff. And on that note, have a beautiful day. And even if the day isn't as beautiful as you thought it would be or hoped that it would be, just adjust so that it can be, because you can control how you respond to the environment and the world and the day around you. Don't react to it, but respond by adjusting, whether that's adjusting your perspective, adjusting the way that you think and see things. Just give yourself some room to not be so fully in control of the things that you don't have control over, because you're not in control anyway. So you might as well not give in to trying to force yourself to be in control where you can't be. So that's my 2 or 3 cents for today. I hope you enjoyed. And until next time, adjust, pivot, move, adapt, and you'll be fine. See you soon. Thanks for listening. Thank you so much for tuning into today's episode. If you want to learn more about the podcast, you can go to creativeinprocess.com, where you can sign up for email alerts, connect on social media, and submit your feedback, thoughts, and questions to have them included in a future episode. If you want to connect with me directly, you can find me at Nialand Music on all social media platforms. And please like, comment, share, subscribe, tell somebody about this podcast, because it only goes as far as you help it grow. I'll see you next time. Thanks for tuning in. Peace out.